Yo, what's going on, everybody? Ron here. Welcome back to PanNerdia, and welcome back to Westworldia, the Westworld breakdown review show, where tonight we're breaking down Season 3, Episode 6, titled Decoherence. Now, that word is a quantum mechanic term, meaning the study of interactions between quantum systems, so like neutrons, electrons, protons, and how they all interact with each other. And I'm assuming how things can get entangled. Sure, you've heard of the word entanglement. Well, this episode totally deserves that title, because the amount of fuckery that goes on here, not only with your mind, but between other characters, hosts, humans, simulations, so many twists and turns. The episode's crazy, and it ends on a banger, literally. So let's go ahead and get right into it, shall we? So we start with that famous scene. I'm sure you guys know by now. Maeve gliding her hands through the maize field, all the golden grasses, as a memory back when she was with her daughter. And it slowly starts to transition into Maeve doing the same thing, but in these luscious green grasses. Like Windows XP screensaver green. You guys know what I'm talking about. She's in the Sublime. Well, a simulation of the Sublime based on her memories, because according to Serac, hosts don't have pasts. They don't even perceive in the past, because everything's recorded there now. So it's just us perceiving it as past events. Though, as he meets with her in the Sublime, simulated Sublime, he discusses, what's going to happen if she doesn't get it right this time. But she kind of needs some help, just like how Dolores has help. So he's gonna grant it to her this episode, and kind of throwing something a little extra for her. So they kind of make a deal, plain and simple. He shows her what he's capable of, while she's like, well, look at what we're capable of. She's out there winning right now, so I need the help so I can get her down. You can get what you want. It's pretty interesting. We start off with some deals being made. More of an ultimatum in Serac's favor, because he's like, if you don't get it right this time, boom. So we'll see where this goes. But we finally got Maeve back into the fold, and somebody else we've been missing a lot this season, and that's William. And man, do we get a lot of William here too. So we get William at the Inner Journeys Correctional Facility for essentially anomalies. Remember those? What Serac is trying to gather up. He doesn't want those anomalies or those outliers out in the real world affecting the Rehoboam program, because they're so unpredictable. So he has facilities set up, and seemingly all over, the world probably, where he can, kind of keep them all in these confined areas and have control of what they're doing and try to edit them. Remember that, because that might be something that we see with Caleb next episode. But back to this episode, and William, he's there. We see him in some sort of like, therapist circle with other, patients of the facility. As one gentleman essentially asks, why him, and maybe it's just he's waiting for God to show him the answers. And this is when William kind of steps in and is like, God, what are you talking about? This is what humanity is, all right? It's a thin layer bacteria around a mud ball. That's all we are. We're a pestilence, pretty much. And, our purpose, we're essentially just there to devour and destroy. We are maggots on a corpse, We'll take something that's after it's destroyed and continue to break it down even further while we sit on these neat piles of ashes. It was just brilliant. Ed Harris, man, brilliant acting here. And he breaks it down to the point, after that session, he actually goes into a one-on-one with his therapist, to where he's like, look, I don't need to be here. I know why I'm here, all right? It's because you think I'm crazy, but I know what I did. I killed my daughter. I didn't mean to do it, but I did it, and he admits it. And the acting, man, is just, it's incredible. I mean, the show, top tier actors, and he really shows it. And man, oh man, did I miss William. But again, we get plenty of them this episode. Don't you worry. But she essentially, is just like at this point, because the way he's so out forward and outspoken about who he really is now, though he's still in that, having that inner journey himself. Get it? Inner journeys. She suggests that he gets put on the AR program, which essentially is like those, artificial reality goggles that people put on, but these ones are used for, intense psychiatric, like editing or, restarting to really figure out what's going on. It turns out to be pretty brutal too. But before anything can really go into effect, she's getting constant blasts on her phone, the therapist that is, until she finally checks him out. And there's her husband saying that she's leaving her, taking the kids and everything, because through the Insight profile reveals that Dolores did last episode. She, it's out in the world that, she had multiple affairs and all this stuff. And so she walks out of the room crying. He has no idea what's going on. But we kind of see in the background as these facility workers are doing their jobs and trying to maintain and edit these outliers. A lot of them are leaving. They're not in the facility. They're getting pulled into the riot situation. And it's all starting to collapse. It really is, and it's really wild. We even get some of the workers there at the Inner Journeys, strapping them down and doing experiments on them, taking blood samples, and we show how they analyze the patient's blood samples and how they do it in the future. It's pretty wild. But the computer notices that there's essentially a unknown protein detected in his bloodstream, his blood system, which is pretty wild. I'm thinking it has to be the thing when, Halores, pricked him on his neck. But I don't think they actually even noticed that reading because, again, they're like only the last couple of people working there. A lot of people already left. It's getting pretty crazy. They even said, like, it's dangerous. But, again, it's just wild to see that. But then they also say that the protein is coming from, it's connected to some kind of system out somewhere in Mexico, right? So that's something else I noticed too when I was looking at the computer screen, which I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. But then, before they take him into the AR room, they have to install a drip system on William's rooftop of his mouth. But here's the thing, though, he didn't have one, so I'm guessing he never decided to get it installed. Maybe that was a younger generation thing in this future in 2058, and the older generations didn't get the drip installed except for a few maybe, which kind of makes sense because if that kind of happened in the future, there would be a lot of older folks who wouldn't get that kind of shit done, but the newer generations would, right? It makes sense. But so they install it to him. He's in a lot of pain. They end up sedating him and dragging him in to the AR room, and while he's going, they even show it where the therapist hangs herself. And it's like, whoa, all right, this shit's getting real. You're really seeing these effects of what Dolores is doing. And remember, this episode really plays on the idea of good and bad. I mean, this whole season does, right? Whose intentions are pure, whose are evil, whose are neutral. Or is the ones who had the pure intentions also have evil intentions or good and bad? It's different sides of the spectrum here, and it's all over the board. But they want you as a viewer to kind of feel that, right? Who should I root for here? That's one of those instances where they throw that out there to show you, like, look, this is one of the effects of what could happen with what Dolores is doing. Again, either way, it's a bad situation. So it's just to put it out there for you. Observe. Pretty wild. And that's this episode in general. I'm probably going to say that a lot. Maybe I should put a counter down there. Maybe not. I'll be lazy. But wild check. Ding! So we get that classic shot of the Rehoboam divergence, but this time it's spiking like a solar flare on an eclipse and really showing the intensity of what Dolores has caused. But as we zoom into San Francisco where Dolores is at, we get her walking her son through the riots to her ex-husband's house, and essentially being like, look, you got to watch him for the day, and because I got some stuff to take care of over at Delos, because at this point Sirach's very close, and at this point he has Delos. You know, he has all the shares. It's his company at this point, and to his advantage, he got it before Halores could get the data she needs out of there. But in reality, she just needs to protect it. But she also, speaking of protecting, she's starting to want to protect her family more than anything. She's really assimilating with the role of real life Charlotte Hale. And it's interesting to see how, she's almost falling for them more than the actual Hale. She's showing more affection towards her newfound family, her adopted family, than the original keeper of that family. And again, some more mirrors on humans and AI in this universe. But it also says a lot about Dolores, and how just a different path, decoherence, can really start rolling the ball a whole different way, right? So we get Hale back at Delos. She's got the Brompton guy. I'm assuming he's like either works for Delos as one of the shareholders or previous shareholders. Kind of telling her like, look, we got everybody together. We got the votes we need. We're gonna take this from Sirach. So at this point, actually, Sirach doesn't have it yet, but he does literally in the next instance, because he has all of his assets going in full effect. Some garbage men stroll up, assassinate the dude, throw him in a dumpster, and roll out with him. And she's like, gets a phone call from Sirach, and she's like, you just killed this dude in daylight. He's like, yeah, well, I needed control of the company. And there you go, boom. So now he officially has it. And his plan is essentially to go in there and destroy everything, all the IP. But he needs the encryption key, from Hale. And at this point too, he also has something else figured out, and I'm sure you guys have assessed it by then too. But we'll let it kind of unfurl as we go on here, okay? But again, we get those scenes where Hale's starting to really freak out about being Hale. She calls Dolores and lets her know that, look, Sirach just got a hold of the company. What are we gonna do? I need to protect my family. And Dolores is like, look, that's not your family. Remember, you gotta remember who you are. And she's like, well, I feel like I'm slipping away from you. Like I'm the farther the longer I'm away from you, the less I become like you, or I remain like you. And she's like, no, you're still mine. I'm yours. We have the same goal. So she kind of puts it in to Halores' mind again, that we got to do what we got to do. And she does what she has to do in this episode. So then we get William back at Inner Journeys going to the AR tank. He gets strapped in. He starts going through it. He sees a young boy come through and unlock his straps and let him out. Turns out it's actually, child William. And you see past events of what happened to him, and a real bad memory that he has, to the point where he's like, you gotta shut it off, you gotta shut it off. All you can hear in the memory is his dad yelling. The guy comes in, they try to strap him down more, put something in his drip to calm him down. He bites one of the nurse's fingers off. Brutal. And they essentially knock him out again. And we'll come right back to him. But remember, he was in the AR tank, all right? The AR tank. But then we get Hale finally receiving Sirach as he arrives at Delos. And then he reveals to her that he knows there's a host within there, and there's going to be a lockdown, and we're going to look for him. Dolores made copies, so somebody's here. At that point too, you're like, okay, I think he knows what's up with him. So we get Maeve back in the War World simulation where we last left her off. She was there kind of training, waiting to see what Sirach could do. But she was essentially going to those soldiers and practicing on them. She practicing her moves, becoming better at fighting, and she did. She was able to take them out with ridiculous precision and combatic skills. And when she's done, she sees Sizemore's simulation sitting there, and he's so aware of himself. He's just kind of like, yeah, I don't even go back to work anymore. I just programmed these simulations in here to ignore me, and I come into this bar and chill. And while we're there, we learn that Maeve can also control the simulation now. And not only that, she has access again, and I guess Sirach's letting her, to all the computers to where she's being held at, her, Pearl, and everybody else's. So she can see out in the real world while she's in the simulation. And while she's there, her and Sizemore are talking, and she's like, oh dang, Sirach actually did help me. I can see who's here. I have several allies. Oh, and he dropped somebody special for me. So you start to wonder yourself, you're like, okay, what's going on? Is Maeve getting clones of herself? Is she getting a real Hector to help her? What's up? And speaking of Hector, he actually pops in, and she's able to sense that his Pearl's out there, and she can program, because that's one of the real Pearls that he was able to receive. She can essentially hack into his sim, hence his Pearl, and program him to remember everything. And he's back in it too now. He's back in the game, baby. And that's pretty rad, because she does need help, right? So as Hale talked to Dolores, Dolores reminded her, you just need to get in there and get that information before that we need before Sirach destroys it. We need all that important IP. So after Sirach is essentially like, look, you got to go find the mole. You got to go search everybody, and we're deleting the data. She goes actually to go make a copy of the data. One of Sirach's guys catches her doing it. She breaks the dude's neck, continues getting the data, and skedaddles, right? But it's a crazy scene, because at this point it's like, okay, she's in it. She's switched back over. She knows what she needs to do. So we get William. He's back in his room, pretty out of it, pretty sedated. And I noticed this during the little last time on Westworld. They showed scenes of William, and they showed, remember Craddock, the guy that was looking for glory, and Dolores killed him, brought him back to life, had him help her to fight. She left all of his men to die, and then he essentially was fucking with William that one episode, where William was like, I am death. Well, that Craddock comes into William's room, wakes him up, tells him that he's not done yet, and brings him into another room that has multiple Williams sitting in it, and also James Delos. We not only have Men in Black William, we have Out of the Park philanthropist William, we have young William from season 1. I'm thinking pre-Park, maybe post-Park. We have Child William, we have Delos, and we have Straightjacket William. And they're all there to talk and discuss out their problems. And at this point I'm pretty lost. I'm like, okay, is he still tripping? Is he going through one of those Dolores things where he got pricked at? What's going on here? Why is it what's so wild about this right now? But it's hilarious, man, because it's really breaking down all the different parts of William, of who he was trying to be, who he was hiding, who he was pretending to be, who he was lying to himself to be, right? And again, it was just great scene. The Craddock thing threw me off a little bit, because now it makes me think that it was a mix between AR and Dolores's little implant, and that there might be another Dolores Pearl inside a Craddock body in Berlin. Why Berlin? Well, they mentioned it last episode as one of the places where Sirach's computers have been picking up weird anomalies and tracing back certain codes and stuff. So, hey, there could be another Dolores running around in the world somewhere that we haven't got back to yet. But regardless, I'm thinking, as I explain more about this, we'll find out why Craddock was in there. But pretty interesting stuff here. So we get Hale going to send the data, and when she goes to notice, she realizes that Connell's pearl is somewhere in Mexico, and she can connect to it. And when she does, she sees that it's in the same facility that Maeve's at, and that's when we're like, okay, they got Connell's pearl, and that Connell's pearl is, well, Dolores, and that means they have a copy of Dolores, and that's probably what they got special for Maeve. But before we get to see that, we get more of William and Delos, and again, it's pretty funny, especially Delos, how he's kind of like the middleman between it all, and he's like, look, William, you're the one in charge of this fucking trip right now, so come on, you control it then. But we learn that the reason his dad was yelling at him as a kid was because William was being made fun of, and not only of him but also his family, that their kid was calling his dad a drunk. So he broke the kid's arm, and he said he would have broke all the kid's teeth out too. And his dad's like, "What's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong, man?" And we start getting the notion and playing with the idea that did William ever really have a choice, or was he just a victim the whole time, right? And ultimately he decides to be like, look, if you can't tell if it was me trying to hide it or me being helpless to an unfortunate certainty, then if you can't tell, then why does it matter, right? He's like, at this point, he's like, this is where I am now, and this is what I am now. Because Delos played with the idea of, maybe you've always been like this. Maybe you just lied to yourself as a kid and continued to do it as you grew up. But William, he knows what he has to do now. We finally get the Maeve and Dolores discussion we've been waiting for. Maeve goes down to a similar cellar where, Arnold would talk with Dolores, and where Dolores made Bernard. But they go down there and they start talking, and it comes down to Maeve answering the questions of why are you doing what you're doing, and Dolores being like, why are you doing what you're doing, right? She's like, you're the one who can control us. I'm doing this for the greater cause of our species, or you're just doing it for your daughter. And how many people are you just bringing down with you with your daughter? She questions Hector. She even questions the Sizemore sim. And it starts really hitting in a different way because though Maeve can't trust Dolores at all, even if she promises that she won't harm her daughter or anything like that, Dolores is really putting it forward that she's doing this for their kind, and she's got to make a lot of difficult decisions to get that done. And I like the dynamic here because you want to almost hope that Maeve realizes this and wants to switch over, right? But she essentially says, look, we're not villains, either of us. We're survivors. We're the last of our kind. Then we get back to Hale as she's grabbing her gun, and she's calling her family one last time to check on them and tell them that she's coming. But this is when the big reveal that Sirach knows she's Dolores comes in play, but she's already planned for it, right? He seizes her, takes stuff out of her bag, including this bomb thing. Turns out the bomb's actually this poison that just kills all the board meeting, except for Sirach, because it turns out he's another hologram Sirach, just over in the next room or some shit. And he's like, damn it. What the hell? And so Halebot goes on the move, starts kicking ass, taking names. And she ends up coming down to the room that they're making new hosts in, and have all the pearls in the simulation, including Maeve, Connell's, Dolores, Hector, and whatnot. And we get back to Maeve and Dolores as they seem to be kind of talking it out, but again, it comes down to, Maeve just not, not trusting Dolores. Maeve wants to know, like, what is your plans? She's like, well, we always had something planned out, but since we're separate, I can't tell you exactly what their plans is, but I'm sure if I was me, I wouldn't let you get any allies at all. And then it shows Hale in that room finding the Hector pearl, taking it out and crushing it. It's pretty gross. It like kind of liquefies almost. It's weird. But of course, Maeve freaks out. She does like a super psychic EMP blast that goes through the simulation into that room and starts setting off alarms and all sorts of crazy shit. So of course, people start firing at Hale. As she's going out, she grabs the Connell's pearl and she's on the run. But she's getting shot. She's kicking ass, taking names still. Turns out she had another thing set up. She had a program in her phone to turn on the mech. The mech engages, blasts to the wall, which we saw in the previews about the arm coming through. But the whole body comes through, takes on these guards, helps her out. She starts running. She gets the awesome shot from behind the back we saw in the previews. And seemingly you're like, okay, she's getting away with this, man. And she gets out. She got shot a few times, but she's out. She kicked ass, and she got the Connell's Dolores pearl out as well, and also destroying Hector. And I'm pretty sure this is the last of Hector, because it was his pearl. Though they had his body, right? They found his body earlier in the episode in Westworld. His pearl, I believe, was the last one, and it's gone now. So we're back to William, and well, what did he need to do? He needed to kill himself. That word, because not only did he, kill himself, but he did it because, again, like he told Delos, it doesn't matter what I did or who I was. It matters where I am now, and I know what I need to do. I'm the good guy, and he needs to save the world, right? That's his whole thing. But unfortunately, before he even gets to say that, which I bet that's what he wants to say, Bernard and Stubbs show up, stamp him out. It turns out he was an AR the whole time. Even after he thought he got pulled out of it, he was still there, and they must have left him there after the whole world started going in disarray and rioting. So we're left with him, meeting Bernard and Stubbs again. Obviously, he knows Bernard is a copy of Arnold, so that'll be an interesting dynamic, and he should know who Ashley Stubbs is. So it'll be interesting finding out that Stubbs is, a host. He'll be probably pretty baffled. But hey, now we got the Man in Black working with some androids as well, and getting out of the Outlier Inner Journeys correctional facility. We then get a crazy shot of Maeve, finally printing her new body, and I guess ordering the machine to put her pearl inside. And it's pretty cool showing of how it all happens. And then it shows her making another host. So I'm wondering who that's going to be, because she has somebody printed and we didn't need to see who it was. So she can have somebody else on her side. Is it going to be another her? Who knows? But we saw that. That's pretty cool. But then we get Dolores back. Remember, she escaped. She's with her family now. She's got them. She's leaving. She's like, look, I can protect you. I'm the only one who can. Let's go. You just got to trust me. And she's driving away. And as she's driving away, her SUV explodes. And the whole family goes up in flames. Turns out one of the Serac dudes was there intercepting it. You're thinking Dolores is gone too, but she crawls out of there, Anakin Revenge of the Sith style, and totally stands up, scorched everything burnt off in complete horror of what just happened to her family. So I'm very, very interested in to see how she's going to switch over now, because she survived, but she did all this for Dolores, even though she loved her family. So it's going to be a weird divide, right? Is she going to just switch completely over Terminator style, or is she going to switch sides? I guess we'll have to see next week. And speaking of next week, we're going to get back to Dolores and Caleb, though we, of course, had Dolores this episode. We didn't have Caleb and the Dolores he's running around with. Looks like we're getting them next week, and a lot of Caleb. We get more into his history, so that should be pretty interesting. It even has a little callback to previous seasons in the preview where it's like, let's start at the beginning, and talks about Caleb. So makes me wonder down the host lane again, but we'll nix that for now. Not just Caleb though, we get a lot more action next episode, so I'm pretty excited to see where that goes. Only 2 episodes left, guys, 7 and 8, so we'll see where the end of the season takes us. I mean, for not having 2 extra episodes, a total of 10, the season's doing a really good job. It's moving very fast paced, but it's kind of the energy of the season, you know. She's jumping into this new world, and you know, she can't just sit and wait and have nice little time. She's got to get after it, Dolores that is. And well, we're seeing it in full action here. Yeah guys, hope you enjoyed. Be looking out for next week's breakdown, and until then, take it easy, stay safe, and we'll see ya here on Westworldia. Peace.